this kind of started, so I saw online something that said, hey, if you use ChatGPT a lot, go into the model and ask it, hey, based on everything you know about me, point out my top 5 blind spots. So I ran through that exercise on myself last week, and it was some very valid and invaluable feedback for me personally. But I use ChatGPT to kind of organize a lot of these trainings as well, and kind of aggregate data and stats and put it all together and then create the presentations out of it. So I said, hey, based on all the trainings that you've helped me create, what are the blind spots that you think I might be missing in training? And one of the feedback pieces came back and said, hey, you're really great at talking about tech. You're really great about talking about psychology and mindset and data. But I think one of your blind spots is getting to more of the emotional side of the real estate business and, helping your agents understand that relationships are built, and that's where, successful closings come from. And so we put together this training, right? Your ability to connect meaningfully with your clients is your most valuable asset in today's real estate market, right? There's tons of agents out there that are just churning and burning through clients, but they're not getting repeat and referral business because they're not creating lasting relationships. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go on the emotional side. Nancy, can you mute yourself?
So sorry. I was typing away, wasn't I?
But here's why this matters, right? 70% of people say that they would use their same agent again when pulled right after closing. The actual percentage of people that do is 25%, which means there's a 45% gap in the relationships that you're creating and trying to foster with your clients. And this is the opportunity cost, right? You're losing 45% of business year over year because you're not creating valuable enough relationships with your people for them to come back and use you again, right? There's all this talk about AI and Zillow and automation and all these outside forces coming to steal our business, but your ability to connect with the people that you've served is what keeps you in the game, right? You're not just selling a house, you're guiding their life decision. And that is irreplaceable. Yes, all these other tools can help you do your job better or more efficiently or at a higher level, but at the end of the day, real estate is a relationship-based business. And the belly-to-belly, the heartfelt conversations, the being there in somebody's important life steps, that's what keeps you in the game, and that is what's irreplaceable. So I think one thing we need to get better at is listening, right? We all know real estate inside and outside. It's what we do every single day. And so I think there might be a tendency for us to just start word vomiting. Yep. This is what we got to do. Here's the next step. We're going to go do this, go do that. I need this from you, and I'll see you at the closing table. Because it's second nature to us, but it's a foreign process to the majority of the consumers. And so most agents focus on what they're going to say next, right? What's the next thing I need to do? What's the next piece of information I need to get? What's the next, step in the transaction? But top agents focus on what the client is really saying. And you've probably heard this before, but clients don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Again, put yourself in the shoes of your clients, right? They're in a big life transition. They're either moving houses or they're selling a house that they currently live in. And to them, right, this is an emotional process. And so the better we can get at listening to discover, the deeper our relationship is going to become with our clients. And so I want you guys to get better and to be cognizant in the conversations you have with people this week. Are you doing the majority of the talking, or are they? I think we talked last week, right? You should follow the 80-20 rule, right? The client should be talking 80% of the time, and you should be talking 20% of the time. And if you can master this, right, you're going to uncover their deeper motivation. You're going to understand why they need what they need, not that they just are looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath house like everybody else. Right? You've got to learn how to be actively engaged in the conversation. And this is an art form, right? Asking appropriate and timely follow-up questions and open-ended questions to allow the client to give you the most amount of information in return. And then be focused. Again, We all have a lot going on. If your brain is anything like mine, it's spinning 1,000 miles a minute most of the day. And so it's hard. Sometimes you're having a conversation with somebody, but your brain is already 3 steps ahead and you're not actually listening to what they're saying. And so again, mastering the art of giving your complete presence, being in the moment, they say feet on the ground, and actively engaged in the conversation you're having to make it more meaningful. So what does this look like, right? A lot of us ask questions like, hey, are you pre-approved? And they go, yep, or no, not yet, right? It's a conversation killer. So instead of asking, hey, are you pre-approved? Ask them, hey, what's your comfort zone for a monthly payment? They're going to start explaining to you, hey, we're currently in a lease right now in an apartment, and our rent is $1,900, and we feel like we can go a little bit above that to make sure that we can find a house that's suitable for us for the next few years. We've already started talking to our lender at the bank that we bank at. We've got pre-approved. Here's where we're at. Right? You learn so much more in that conversation than just a simple yes or no, asking if they're pre-approved. It can also tell you the reverse, right? If you ask, hey, what's your comfort zone for a monthly payment? And they go, I have no idea, right? You instantly know that they probably haven't done what they need to get their finances in order, or start having a conversation with the lender to figure out what a pre-approval amount would look like. Second question, right? Are you looking in Sauk City only? Most of the time people will say, well, yeah, I asked you to show me this house in Sauk. Instead, asking questions like, what does your ideal neighborhood look like? Again, we're the community experts, and a lot of us work a lot of the surrounding, towns and cities. And so if you get them to start describing, here's what's important to us in a neighborhood, or here's what's important to us in a house, you now can have the opportunity to become the area expert and say, hey, I know you think you wanted Sauk, but I think it's really worth looking in Merrimack. Or be really, there's a neighborhood in Baraboo that I think could be a really good fit for your family. Same thing, third question, do you need to sell? Most of the time they'll say yes or no. Right? But instead asking, what needs to happen before you're ready to make this move? Not only are you going to find out if they need to sell before they buy something, you might find out that they have, a grandchild's high school graduation this summer that they want to make sure that they're in town for. Or, I'm retiring in 6 months. And so before we move, I need to make sure that I've finished my job. Right? Better questions uncover the real needs of your clients. They create clarity and they build that emotional connection. Right? The deeper questions you can ask and the more transparency and vulnerability you're going to get out of your client, that's how you build strong, lasting relationships, because your clients think and believe and know that you actually care about them as people and not just as transaction numbers. And so avoid asking those rapid fire questions, right? This isn't an interrogation. It's not an interview. Ask open-ended questions and then get really comfortable with silence. Sometimes it's easy for us to ask a question and then try to help them answer it because we're trying to get to the next step. But ask these open-ended questions, give them time and space to think about it and respond, and then continue the conversation.
I'll touch on that.
Yeah.
The buyers that I've been working with during our first kind of discovery call buyer consultation with them, we covered a lot of this. They needed to be within halfway between their 2 jobs. They were pre-approved up to 410, but we're only comfortable around 350, which is a pretty big gap. We're looking in some specific areas, and they had to re-sign their lease by May 15th, or they'd be stuck in their lease for another year. So even though their lease doesn't end until July 31st, we had a pretty tight time frame to work around. So just again, asking these deeper questions and really understanding their personal situation got us a lot further than we could have been.
Yeah. And had Riley said, hey, when's your lease up? And they say end of July, right?
I would have been like, oh, we have plenty of time.
It's possible, right, that she would have been like, we've got plenty of time and we'll start looking, pretty actively at the end of May or early June, and you'll be set up for success. But instead, she missed their true motivation of, yeah, our lease is up at the end of July, but we've got to re-sign by the middle of May. And so that totally changes the timeline that we're working on. There's a lot of questions on this slide. I wanted to put them here just for your reference as you go back and look at this training later. But here's some really high level open-ended questions, right? What's motivating you to make a move right now? What does your ideal home or lifestyle look like in the next few years? And what would a successful sale or purchase look like to you? Right, that's the last one there. What would a successful purchase look like to you? Right, in Riley's example, they might have said, yep, we're pre-approved up to 410. And she said, great. So she starts sending him houses at 399 to 400. Instead, right, success to them actually looked like 350. Needs and priorities. What are the top 3 things you have to have in your next home? What concerns or questions do you have about the process? Right, that one really touches on maybe some of the fear or anxiety that they're feeling and allows you again to talk them through something that we know how to do every single day, but is foreign to a lot of other people. I like this next question, right? How do you imagine your day-to-day life being different in your next home? Right, they're choosing to make a move for one reason or another. And so there's probably some small pain points. It might be they're currently living in in an apartment on the 3rd floor, and it's really annoying to them to have to carry the groceries in up the elevator all the way down the hallway. And so what they're looking for is a house with an attached garage that goes right into the kitchen. Right, you can find out a lot of cool and interesting and unique things about your clients by asking more of these open-ended questions. Is anybody else involved in making this final decision, right? Who are all the key players that we need to make sure we're taking into account? Have you bought or sold before? What was your experience like? Riley and I just met with some sellers last week who had tried to for sale by owner a house. It didn't work out, so now they're hiring us to sell it. And they've had terrible agent experiences, which is why they tried to go for sale by owner. And she said, I'm going to be totally frank with you. We hate realtors. They've all screwed us over. They've treated us like crap. They don't do their jobs. We get, hurt in the end. We don't see any value in them. But we're here because we need you and we're going to give you guys the chance. And so, right, we spent some time talking through who we are as agents, the value that we can bring to them, how we show up for our clients every single day with, honesty, ethical business practices. And by the end of the conversation, I'm pretty sure we're best friends. And I hope I could maybe have switched her mindset on realtors a little bit during that conversation. But it's possible, right? Maybe they had a really bad experience and they're going to hold that against you, whether you know it or not, if you don't ask this question. Or maybe they had a really great experience, right? And that's our hope. But maybe their previous agent did something that was really helpful to them and they'll share that with you. Diving down into the emotional and the connection side of this, what would make this move feel like the right decision for you and your family? Right? It's not just about finding him a house that has 3 bedrooms and 2 baths and an attached garage. But emotionally, what would this move feel like if it was the right decision? When we hand you the keys on closing day, that you are going to feel so good about making this move, right? Get them to talk through that with you. And use storytelling, right? A lot of us have worked with hundreds of clients before. And again, we've gone through this process so many times that it's very likely that what they might be concerned about or what their challenge is, we've already helped somebody else through. And so people trust stories over statistics, right? And stories build that connection and they prove value without me saying, oh, I've done this 100 times, not a problem. Right? But as you're working through these things with your clients, introduce relatable post clients who have gone through a similar situation. Right? Present the obstacle that they've experienced that relates to the current client's challenge, and then share your approach. Hey, here's what I did to help them through that successfully. And then celebrate the outcome and reassure them that you can help them achieve that same result. Right? The proof is in the story. Right? You remind me of a family or a client who I worked with. They also had a couple young kids and they needed to be settled before school started. So here's what we did. We knew that school starts the 1st of September, so we started actively looking the 1st of June. That gave us 90 days to make sure that we found a really good fit for their family. They were able to close by the beginning to the middle of August. Their kids were settled, school started, and everybody was happy. Right? Again, it shows I've already done this. I know it might seem like a really big, scary thing to you right now, but I'm gonna bear the burden of all of that because to me, it's no big deal. We've already done this once. It was successful, and I'm confident we can do it again for you. So use storytelling. I know a lot of you, Nancy, you did this for a while, but every time you had a closing, instead of just posting a sold on Facebook and saying, yep, I just sold 123 Main Street for 350,000, right, which comes off as salesy, she would write a little blurb about every client that she served, right? Hey, today we closed on 123 Main Street. Mary and Steve, I've known them for a long time, blah, 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 told their story, right? It's so much more relatable to the people that are reading her posts because they might find themselves in that same situation and go, wow, yeah, I remember, Nancy helped Mary and Steve. No doubt in my mind that she can help me do the same. I'm going to go call her. Right? It hits to that emotional connection of people wanting to relate to each other and us being the matchmaker. Pro tip here, if you're a newer agent and you don't have, a ton of stories and a ton of past clients to tell stories about, use office or team stories, right? Somebody in my office just helped a client in your same situation, or somebody on my team just went through this, right? We're all in this together. We're here to help, hold each other up and elevate all of our client interactions. And so if you don't have a specific one, but you've been in conversation with another agent in your office or in our firm or on your team that has, feel free to leverage their stories as well. And this is what my podcast was about this morning that I just quick dumped onto the slide, but asking magical questions. So the lady on the podcast, I think she was like a crisis counselor, but she talked about, right, when you're in a big group of people, whether it's a networking event or a dinner party or something, and it feels kind of boring, right? How can you, she said, bring the sparkle to the conversation? And I thought it was really applicable to what we're talking about today on building deeper relationships and asking better questions of the people that we're around. And so this could be with your clients as you're sitting down and getting to know them. Again, this could be at a volunteer event or something that you, a group that you network with. But she said magical questions are open-ended prompts designed to elicit personal stories, reflections, and insights, moving beyond superficial small talk. So in her example, she gave a lot of, great examples about, hey, you're at a cocktail party with a bunch of people you don't know, ask everybody whether or not they believe in aliens. Right? It's a non-political, non-religious, non-opinion-based or strong opinion-based question. You're not there to stir the pot on anything, but she says these magical questions are questions that anybody would be happy to answer. And they're questions that can tell you a lot about a person based on their answers to these. And so I kind of brainstormed and went through, how could we apply this to our conversations that we're having in real estate and building deeper connections with the people that we're interacting with. And so I came up with a couple of these, right? Tell me about your favorite thing about the house you grew up in. Right?
Oh no. It finally died. Okay, I'll just stand closer. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So Nancy was on showings with that client that she just talked about last weekend and showed a house that was the same floor plan as the house that we all grew up in. Right? There's so many things I could talk about in that home that were my favorite things, right? I loved that my sister and I's bedrooms were all in one wing of the house and we could bop between each other's rooms as much as we wanted, right? Ask your clients this. You're going to find that they're going to tell you things that they really like in a house that they have an emotional connection to. And if you can find that same emotional connection to their next house, it's going to be a no-brainer for them. Tell me about something that brought you joy this week, right? Absolutely not related to real estate. But people will tell you about something that made them really happy. And you'll get to know them on a personal level and on a deeper level. What does home mean to you? If you could wave a magic wand, what would your next chapter of life look like? Let's a couple of these. What do you want more of in your life this year? And what do you want less of? Or if nothing were holding you back, what would you go do next? Right? Get to know your people as more than just a transaction.
I've used kind of this tactic on the seller side, like meeting with them, getting ready to list their house, and asking them like, what are your favorite things about this house? What areas of this house have you spent the most amount of time in? And just like actually hearing their story about the house. because it can be a good way to use that in your marketing or attracting buyers to it and things like that. And sellers love to talk about their own house and what they loved about it. So.
Yeah, I did this as well with some first-time home buyers, a young couple, and I said to them, hey, after a day at work, it's a weeknight, you guys both get home from work, what's your favorite thing to do? And they looked at each other and kind of started giggling, and they're like, we love to eat pizza and play Magic the Gathering or something, a game like that. And I was like, tell me more about that. And they're like, well, it's kind of nerdy. And I'm like, no, I don't care. I think that's awesome. If that's what happiness on a Wednesday night looks like to you guys, I want to know about it. Well, yeah, we got into this game. We met because we both played this game in college, and we used to go to this game club. And that's kind of when we started dating. And so it's kind of a fun game for us to continue to play. And I think it'd be really cool in our next house if we had an extra bedroom that we could maybe use as more of a game room so we could have our other friends over to play. Right? So cool. I learned so much about them. Again, ask these questions and then embrace the pause in between. Right? People will reveal more after a moment of reflection than if you're just rapid firing, asking them to respond.
I did a buyer consult last week and was talking to the girl over the phone. And the two houses that she sent me were both 5-bedroom houses. One of the first things she told me was that they had one little boy, whatever. I was like, you're looking at a 5-bedroom house. Is this amount of bedrooms you want or need? And she went on to tell me about how this is probably gonna be their only child. He has some health issues that they want to take care of. They're really comfortable with just one kid, but she really would like to homeschool. So it's like to have some extra space or a bigger room for that, and just kind of unfolded all of her wants and why a house of this size was important to her.
Yeah. And again, you learn so much more in that because maybe it's not actually 5 bedrooms that they need, but maybe they could find a house that had dual rec spaces, one that could be converted more into a homeschool studio. But again, you learn so much more when you can ask deeper questions. And if you want to keep the conversation going, my favorite thing to say is tell me more about that. Right? Again, it helps people break out of their shell. Again, most of the time, you know these people a little bit. Some of the time, you are a total stranger to them. And so if you get them talking about things that, right, are these magical questions, they're not really related to, you know, the real estate process, but they're more related to who they are as people, what their life looks like, and how you can help facilitate success through real estate moving forward. But put that in your vocabulary and use it often. Tell me more about that. And then I think this is such an area of opportunity for so many people in real estate. One of the biggest momentum killers in the sales process is ending any meeting or conversation or day of showings without a clear next step. Right? So many times we just end and we go on, and then 2 weeks later we think, oh yeah, man, I probably should go call those people again, see where they're at. In the meantime, they're sitting at home going, I wonder if my agent's actually doing anything. Do they even remember me? Do I need to go find somebody else to work with? So never conclude a meeting or a call without scheduling a specific follow-up action. And here's what this looks like, right? Based on what we've just talked about or based on what we've seen, seems like this could be a good fit for your needs. Would you agree with that? If they say yes, great, move to the next step. If they say no, even better, right? You can continue to investigate maybe where the disconnect is or where the gap is to figure out what is actually good for their needs. And then once you figure that out, proposing the specific next action. Great, I agree with you, right? It does seem like Baraboo could be a really good spot for you and your family to live. The next step would probably be looking up all the available listings that meet your needs in Baraboo and sharing it with you. Do you agree that that's probably our next step? They go, yeah, makes sense to me, right? Or if they say no, we just want to wait, right? Well, help me understand what you need to accomplish before you can make this move. Again, once you agree on the second step, set definitive time, right? Cool, I'll get those listings over to you in Baraboo, take some time to review them. So let's get something on the calendar, right? Does Thursday at 10 a.m. work for you? My schedule's pretty open. That should give you a few days to review the listings I sent over, and then we can go take a look at them. And they go, yep, great, Thursday at 10, we're free as well. And then immediately send their confirmation after your conversation. right? This last step, I don't, we do haphazardly sometimes, but again, reconfirming, hey, Mary and Steve, it was so great talking to you today. As we discussed, looking for homes in Baraboo would be a great next step for you. Here's a list of those listings. Take the next couple days to look over them, and I'll meet you at 123 Main Street at Thursday at 10. It's already on my calendar, and I'm looking forward to seeing you then. Right? There is a clear outcome of what you're doing for the client and what the client needs to do for you. The expectations are set, the schedule is set, and you can keep the ball rolling. Right? Then you go to your appointments Thursday at 10, based on how they go, start over. So based on the 3 houses we've seen today, looks like the one on 2nd Street is probably the best one. Would you agree with that? Yeah, I would. We love it. Awesome. So I think the next step would be figuring out if you want to write an offer on it. Do you want to meet at my office tomorrow at noon? We can sit down with your pre-approval letter and go over what the details of writing an offer would look like. Yep, sounds good, right? It keeps the ball rolling. It's also going to dramatically increase your conversion rates because your clients and your leads are going to be engaged throughout the entire cycle. There's never going to be a step in this when they're wondering what needs to happen, what you're doing or what's coming next. And again, I think sometimes we get in our own way on this because we know every single step that's going to happen, but the client doesn't. Again, this is a foreign process to a lot of people. And if you can do all of this, right, you can communicate at a high level, you can give people a personalized experience, you can create a really strong relationship with them, you're going to create raving fans, right? Your clients are going to have a memorable experience with you, and they're going to be part of that.
Okay, you probably won't be able to hear me very well because I'm on a bus on the way to the zoo.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I just turned off our training.
Nancy, you're
Okay,
nuts.
so question.
Hey,
I uploaded
Nancy,
a listing
Nancy.
last week and I accidentally clicked on the wrong doc and put it under.
Oh my gosh. Sorry about that, you guys. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, I'm laughing so hard.
She's on the naughty list. If I had a chalkboard, I'd write her name on it. Yeah. But yeah, as I was saying, right, you're communicating at a high level, you're creating transparency throughout the process, you're getting to know your people on a personal level. They're going to be part of that gap, that 45% of people who are going to come back and use you and refer you time and time again. And so as you're going through this process and you're creating these relationships, think about how you can go above and beyond to serve your clients throughout the process, right? Handwritten notes, personalized videos, moving day care packages, local resource guides for people that might be moving to a new community. What are you doing on home anniversaries? Are you checking in with them? Personal home maintenance tips. All of these things are so easy to do and take very little time, but so few agents actually do them. So again, I want you to remember, people remember how you made them feel, not what you said. They're going to remember very little about the actual transaction process and all the phone calls and the emails and the text messages back and forth. They're going to remember what it felt like to work with you. And 41% of sellers found their agents through a referral, meaning your happy clients will talk to their people. And that's going to exponentially increase the amount of business that you're able to do, because the more people that know, like, and trust you and are willing to refer you, it's going to snowball. And doing the little things that other people aren't is definitely worth it. And so here's our wrap up, right? Start with better conversations. Show up with curiosity, empathy, and intention to every client interaction, right? Be present, ask the right questions, dig deeper, ask them, tell me more about that, right? And move beyond the scripts. Make this stuff sound authentic, right? You don't want to be a canned robot. So focus on that authentic connection rather than memorize talking points. People can read right through the scripts. And scripts are helpful because it helps you understand what you need to say, and you should be practicing them, but it needs to come out as authentically you. And so for your challenge for this week, I want you to take 3 common questions that you get from buyers or sellers, or that you ask to buyers or sellers, and rewrite them to make them open-ended. Figure out, hey, as I'm going into my listing presentation or my buyer consult, here's what I typically ask people. How can I improve a few of these questions to make them more open-ended and drive deeper conversations? And so if you want more closings, the path begins with meaningful client relationships. The better relationships you can have with your people, the more closings you're going to have, guaranteed. You already have the knowledge. You guys all know how to sell real estate. You know how to serve buyers. You know how to serve clients or sellers. But you can take it a step above, right? Take it beyond just the routine of the transaction process and focus on elevating yourself and your business and to creating better relationships with your people. And that's what I got for you today. Any questions or thoughts? Anybody want to get into a conversation with me? We'll be talking all day.
I was gonna say, when agents obviously come to me to talk about social media, a big part of it is wanting to be, they want to be authentic, but you also have to show that you're an expert in the industry. Those posts are easy, where we can show like you're an expert or that you have tips or tricks for your clients. But the authentic part, that has to come a little bit from you. So just remembering to go out and take like videos and photos, even if you take them now without the intent of sharing them, take them and then you have them and you can at least like share them. Like if I'm doing your socials, you could always share them with me and I might have a really good idea for something that you're like, well, I took this, but I'm not. Yeah. So just reminding your clients and especially your past clients, because that's probably a lot of your social or part of your social media following. Why did they work with you in the beginning or in the first place? And like what they enjoyed about working with you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, right, authenticity and being your authentic self is one of the biggest differentiators in all of us as agents, right? I'm confident that everybody that works for this company is a really good realtor. I'm confident in your skills and your ability to serve buyers and sellers at a really high level. And so if we had a buyer walk into the door and they said, I need an agent, who should I work with? Right? I'd be happy to point them to any single one of you guys. But who you are as people too matters. And so sharing your personal story, sharing what makes you different, sharing your experiences, your personality helps you find the people that are a better fit for you to work with. And so there's a lot of opportunity in that as well.
And I remind people, like, it's not your journal. You don't have to share everything and you don't have to share things that you're just not comfortable sharing. Like part of your life is obviously private to you. So don't ever feel like, I better share this part because it would help connect. Like if you're just not wanting to talk about that on social media or with a client at all, like you don't have to. There's plenty of other things that you can, I'm sure, focus on instead. So
yeah. All right, you guys, have a good Tuesday. Thanks for showing up this morning. Next week is the monthly sales meeting, so we'll get information out about that later this week. And call me if you need anything.
there will be omelets in Monona
Ooh, that's right.
for the monthly sit, right? Yes, next week. Yep.
Dan's making omelets.
But you have to come to the office, so.
That's right. No omelets served via Zoom. All righty, thanks, guys.